When Toy Story 5 was initially announced, I wasn't excited for it. I was already pretty disappointed with Toy Story 4, feeling like they were just milking the franchise, and this new installment felt like that was continuing the trend. Toy Story 3 was a great send-off for the series. Andy was going off to college, the toys found a new home in Bonnie, and it felt like a satisfying point to leave the series on. And then they did Toy Story 4, which came off like they only did it because they could. Toy Story's been a majorly successful franchise for Pixar, so why not? But personally, I felt that Toy Story 4 was kinda disrespectful to the franchise. It did have some interesting concepts, like introducing Forky and the idea that children create their own toys. I actually think that's pretty cool, although I did find Forky himself to be pretty annoying. It's pretty common for kids to make arts and crafts using everyday items like plasticware or pipe cleaners, but Forky kept insisting that he was garbage and demanded to be thrown away, to the point where he caused a lot of trouble, including the main conflict in the story, where Bonnie's family goes on vacation and he throws himself out of their RV window, forcing Woody to go after him, and the two of them end up getting stranded. This is where it really starts to lose me. Long story short, Woody ends up getting really roughed up this movie, including losing his speaker box to another toy, and also permanently leaves Bonnie to go help Lost Toys, and Bonnie doesn't really notice that he's gone. Woody is an antique, and in the second movie, his mother says that he's an old family heirloom.
$5.
I'm sorry, it's an old family toy.
And refuses to sell him even though she's probably aware of the secondhand market, and how much an antique like that would probably go for. I mean, Al literally wanted to put him in a museum. And I guess that's Andy's fault for giving away all of his childhood toys to some random kid he didn't actually know, who can't possibly understand how important these things were to him, or how valuable they are to an adult market. But Bonnie never seems to realize that Woody is missing, including in Toy Story 5. She just doesn't care about Woody at all. And again, she's just a kid. She doesn't understand these things. But if I were Andy and found out my favorite childhood toy was missing its voice box, and the kid I entrusted it to didn't even know where he was, I'd be pretty upset.
You think you can take care of him for me?
You all right, Woody? I'm sure she'll pick you next time.
And I do think it was kind of a weird direction to take the series in. I understand they're trying to go for a finding new meaning in life when it feels like you've lost your purpose kind of message, which I do think is a good message. I just feel like Woody might not have been the right character for this, just given the circumstances. Plus, it doesn't really make any sense. If he gives his voice box to another toy, it would still have his voice lines and recordings, but somehow she has her own voice recordings.
You are my best friend. Let's play all day.
She should be talking like a cowboy. And I know this is a movie for children and you're not supposed to think about it, but it still bothers me. He does return to the family briefly during Toy Story 5, but he goes back out into the world at the end of the movie. Toy Story 5 takes place a few years after 3 and 4. Bonnie is now 8 years old, and still has a very active imagination and plays with her toys, but soon discovers she seems to be in the minority for this, as pretty much everyone else her age is now using devices. Basically, it's a commentary on iPad babies, which I think is an interesting concept to explore. The other kids even go out of their way to make fun of Bonnie for playing with toys still, calling her a baby. They're literally 8. So Bonnie ends up getting her own iPad called the Lily Pad, which quickly tries to usurp the toys. So the movie explores both technology and toys, including how those two things can be the same thing. Like, for example, there ends up being an army of Buzz Lightyears, who ended up being shipwrecked on a deserted island, but these are a new model of Buzz toys that can connect to Wi-Fi, and even though the Lily Pad initially sees the toys as obsolete, they do end up coming together. So this isn't an anti-technology movie. I initially thought that Lily would be played purely as an antagonist, but she ended up being a pretty nuanced character. She initially believed that the world had moved beyond toys, but does come around to appreciating them and even seeing them as friends. I think the movie does a good job at saying that tech is meant to be used as a tool and not something to replace creativity and imagination, and also that it's important not to get sucked into technology. And I liked their message about friendship, like don't do something just because everyone else is doing it, like with the Lily Pad and how everyone else had them, and was basically telling Bonnie to give up her own interests in order to fit in better. Instead, she was able to find a friend who was also imaginative and creative like her, and still played with toys. Something I thought was cute was that they addressed the Buzz Lightyears acknowledging humans when they're in demo mode. A common criticism of the first Toy Story movie is that Buzz Lightyear believes believes that he's an actual space ranger and not a toy, despite everyone telling him that he is. Despite this fact, he still plays dead, so to say, whenever Andy comes around, so even though he doesn't believe he's a toy, he's still acting like one. In this movie, they don't give an explanation for it, but the Buzz Lightyears instinctively go limp when they see a human nearby, and then question why they did that once the human leaves. I do wish they had addressed it beyond that. Maybe somewhere deep down they do know they're actually toys, or maybe it really is an instinct and they just can't help themselves. That could have been an interesting concept to explore, but I did like this little Buzz army and how our Buzz is able to talk to them, explain to them their true purpose and what they really are. The people in the Toy Story universe seem pretty unobservant though, never questioning why things seem out of place, and when they do ask questions like, hey, how did this end up in the garage? They just kind of shrug it off and ignore it, which is pretty convenient, kind of like it just has to be this way for the sake of the plot, which again I realize is mostly a nitpick. It's just something I noticed and kind of bothered me. Anyway, there was also a focus on shipping Buzz with Jessie, which I thought was really cute. They've been teasing that since the second movie, and it was nice to see a resolution to that. Overall, Toy Story 5 pleasantly surprised me. Admittedly, I still think they could have stopped at 3 and it would have been fine. And these sequels are likely just to keep milking the franchise, but it actually had something to say. I guess I'm cool with more Toy Story sequels, mostly because I know there's no choice. But I hope we eventually get to see Andy and Woody reunite, along with the rest of the toys. It's been reported that there was a concept for Toy Story 5 that would have Emily return as a grandmother and introduce her grandchildren to Jessie. I would love to see this come back someday, and I'd definitely love to see Andy return. That, along with other social commentary about modern play habits, means that there's probably going to be a lot more content in the future, for better and for worse. But those were my thoughts. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy Toy Story 5, or do you think they should have stopped after 3? Is there anything you'd like to see in a future installment of Toy Story? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for watching. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to the members: Shiny Orc Boy, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Norman Sweet Cream, Way Beyond Coincidence, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Jay Draws, Skyra, Idle Hands Dibbit, MacB909, Dakari the Professor, Cavalcoj, Phil C, It's the Frankster, Brian B161, Papa Hud 69, G Reezer, Snoopy Von Snoops, Entwined Boot 301, Flywheel, ICU Forever, Killer Bomb, Jesse Ham, Crimson Phantom, Isaiah 6694, Saiyan Champion of the Worlds, Hunter Rose, JVR, Garcia XV Legend, Daunter, Equestron, Tyrant Carnivore, Isaac Martinez, Omri Fair, Meowsers, Gengar King Vivo, Strider Exile, Alicia Hockenberry, and Kingdom of Alba. Thank you all so much for your support. If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more. You can also support us through other means, like our Patreon or Buy Me Coffee if you're interested, and you have the means to. Also, you can join our Patreon for free. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.